Hi guys, hope you're doing well. This is Shuru here. Welcome to my channel Tech Interview Guider. So in this video today I come with an interview experience video. This time company name is Google. But this video consists I will talk about another journey. Like from a 3-tier college to he got an offer from Google. Also without Leetcode. So that's feel pretty interesting. So stay tuned on this video. And don't forget to like our channel, share our channel, and don't forget to subscribe our channel. Thank you. So Google doesn't need any introduction. It is a dream company for all the software engineers. So Google headquarters is in California. In India, they have their office in Bangalore, Hyderabad. So tech stack wise, Google I will say pretty good. You can work with all kind of tech stack like Java, JavaScript, Python, .NET, Ruby, R. All kind of tech stacks are available there. It depends on the team, which team you are working. And apart from tech stack layer, work culture, work life balance are pretty good I will say, and their compensation also top notch. So it is one of the good product based company who have their office in India. Hi Tuhin, first of all thank you for
Hello.
coming to my YouTube channel. So Tuhin got an offer from Google, so first of all congratulations for that. So Tuhin, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Firstly, Subaru, thanks for this great opportunity to have an interaction with you and all of your audiences and yeah. So hey folks, they were talking to Tuhin, and I am just a 2020 pass out on CS grad, and then after that my journey started with ThoughtWorks. Eventually over there I had to manage a lot of clients and getting the most of basic software requirement stuff developing a product and working on requirement analysis along with giving them a presentational skills. And alongside with that, I also had to take a couple of mentoring sessions, and I was also getting mentored. Post that, I found a couple of interests in my front end. So eventually, I got a really great opportunity to work with Flipkart regarding that front end domain. And while working on that front end domain, it's quite a surprise for even for me that one of the recruiter reached out from Google, and it just happened that the process happened, and yes, sometimes things happens. So right now in Google, and let's see what life holds next for me.
That's great. So Tuhin, is it off campus opportunity or on campus opportunity for you?
Yeah, so my college, which is Meghnad Institute of Technology, being a 3-tier college. Okay, so when I talk about 3-tier, firstly I would like to clarify that I don't really believe in tiers or college tiering these things. But yeah, having said that, from the quote unquote standard measures, they call it a tier 3 college. And for a tier 3 college, it's very rare that these companies will come as on-campus opportunities. So yeah, for me, it's mostly was a off-campus opportunity, and yeah, that's about it. And recruiter reached out to me about this.
Okay, so for you, it's an off-campus opportunity.
Right.
So Tuhin, can you tell us the interview rounds in Google?
Yeah, so one of the interesting thing at Google is, as far as my experience goes, the round really varies over the candidate, and it mostly depends on the role. So there is no fixed number of tech rounds. There is no fixed number of HR rounds. It's not like this.
Yeah.
For me, however, my experience is a bit like a two-folded. So in a sense, at some point of time, I was applying at Google, and I was primarily, it's somewhere around 6 months back. And there I had probably 3 or 4 DS algo rounds. Now, unfortunately, in the last round, I could not clear it, which is fine. Like we a human can fail it. And eventually, they kept the profile. And moving forward, at some point of time, one of the other recruiter reached out to me. It's like, hey, you want to give another try on this thing, on this XYZ role? Like, yeah, sure, why not? So what happened, since they kept my profile, they did not bother to go through much of a DS algo this time. It already was pre-recorded as of my record of my profile, right? So this time when I was being interviewed for this thing, it was mostly focused on my domain related, like the web and the mobile, and how do you even approach the scaling up design or so on and so forth, those kind of stuff. Apart with, they could not interview me previously for databases and networks, and do I know all those technicalities of how these things work. So yeah, those things were primarily taken care of, along with a very short a HR and managerial, as well as they call it a googliness and all latest. So that kind of it's like clubbed in one round. So if I were to say like that, if you don't count the previous encounter or of interview, then for this time it was mostly 3 rounds of just interviews. And if you talk about include the other one, like the previous one where I had the DSL, then yeah, it becomes 6 to 7.
And those rounds are not based on DSL they're mostly based on development.
Yeah, right. So like I said, because part of the reason is I was already assessed at some point of time on DSL. So then really did not thought about doing the same exact process one more time. They already know what was my feedback and where did they wanted to assess me more. So yeah, they just thought about doing it. And even the interview process was wrapped up in a very short amount of time due to this.
Okay. And is there any system design round? Is there?
Yeah, not necessarily a dedicated system designing round, but it's mostly about, hey, given this situation, how do you even approach it? Or given this kind of a product I want to build, what would be your way of building this out on a high level, and eventually having a discussion on how do you do on a lower level, but nothing much on a dedicated whiteboard round.
Okay, nothing much on deep, like mostly like some basic theory questions, like how should you
it's mostly like it's mostly like this, but it's not about it. Google also has a dedicated whiteboarding round for senior folks. So yeah, I did not had that round. It was just a part of like the regular conversations over there.
Okay. Got your point. Thank you for sharing this.
Sure.
So Tuhin, we knew that like Google mostly focus on DSL. So how you prepare those DSL round? Can you tell us?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. All right. So first thing that I would like to clarify though is like when we talk about DS and algo, that's not necessarily mean we have to do like comparative programming and so on, right? Yeah, because those two are different things. For me, I feel like it's what all the companies, not necessarily Google, but yeah, pretty much any company that primarily assesses us, which is primarily being based on like can the person even solve this kind of a problem? That is, how do you even approach a problem? Now, DS and algo is nothing but a tool that will help you to solve the problem in a faster way, or maybe in a better way, potentially, right? So that's my view of it. And that's one of the reasons that like after coming out of college. So in college, I did a couple of like, not necessarily Leetcode, but yeah, somewhat like CodeShip and Hacker. And those things I did pretty much a long time. But back, right now, after being in industry, it's very hard to really get some time out of that to do all those things stuff. So yeah, I've never really formally prepared that way, but it goes in a different way. So it's like once you know how do you solve a generic class of problems, given some time you should be able to solve that thing, right? It's mostly about, hey, do you know that theory or not? If you're not unaware of the theory, the best I can say is like just stop doing Leetcode and probably go to Geeks for Geeks, read a couple of concepts over there, and each concept would have a couple of varieties of questions, and just go through one of them. It's okay to read their solutions and don't think hard enough. As long as after you read the solution you feel like, hey, just ask yourself a question as like, hey, I read the solution, this is the algorithm, the question is, can I implement it if I don't look at the code? As long as the answer is yes, you can say, okay, you are decent at problem solving, because now given any particular algorithm, you would be eventually able to solve it, right? You don't necessarily need to like wait a lot of time or think a lot of time before even converting a thought into code, because coding is probably the most simplest task ever in the world, but thinking what to code is probably the hardest thing at the part.
Yes.
And even on interview level, what usually happens is nobody really thinks or looks at, hey, are you able to solve X problems, like 3 problems, 4 problems, 5 problems? But it's rather the clarity that you give to that particular person regarding how you are approaching and what is the depth and what is the clarity in your answer. If you give a good clarity wala answer, it's very likely that you would just nail that interview, even if it happens you're not able to gain a really good expertise in Keep, which is fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Great, thank you for that information.
Sure.
So Tuhin, can you tell us what are the tech stacks available in Google?
Okay, that's a very interesting question though. I mean, I don't really have a straightforward answer to it. Part of the reason is, as you might already know, right, Google has a lot of products and it already has a lot of like sub branches, sub teams, so on and so forth. So depending on what team you go is what will be the like prime determining factor in figuring out what would be your preferred tech stack. However, the good thing about Google is it even has Java. Starting from Java, you can even go up to like JavaScript and maybe something in between, like Python, R, and some data processing stuff, and like CI, DevOps. So it has a variety of roles. Right? So it's very hard for me to concretely tell you of like specific tech stack, because they have a really variety of that. And it always boils down to what you are primarily interested at and for which role you are being hired for. Good news is, even if you are hired for, let's say, role X, but if you do not like the tech stack of X, you can just have a conversation with your like seniors and whoever is the respected person, and then you can accommodate on this thing. Google is very flexible regarding this. They always focus your career growth over their growth, in a sense, because if your career growth is becomes in line with their growth, they would have more like more revenue out of it and more valuable impact out of your effort, right?
Oh, that's great. Like you can change your tech stack also.
Yeah, it depends. Like I said, it depends on what your primary intent is.
Yeah.
Or where exactly you want to do a lot of expertise or build a lot of expertise in, or what exactly your future goals are. So yeah, it's very open to that.
Great. Like Tuhin, you have mentioned that you have done zero coding in Leetcode, I guess. You have not done any problem solving in Leetcode. Still, you have succeeded in a product-based company. It's everyone's dream company. You got offer from Google. So can you tell us how you did it?
Yeah. So here is this. So firstly, I would like to once again clarify that misconception. Leetcode is not equal to problem solve. I never said I did not do problem solve. All that I said, I never did Leetcode.
Yeah.
So yeah, let me elaborate on this one. So what it's like, so I'm always curious to build a lot of different things. And there were times that I built, so while even in office, right, I used to get a lot of free time, and I usually invest all those time building maybe some random software. And when I say random software, it's like the couple of things that I was recently building and now I've already built. Was one of them was known as Plurality, where you could like go there, write random blogs over there, meet people. Like it was like a kind of a full-fledged social media that was built from scratch. Now, when I talk about like something is built from scratch, and that too was built by me from, let's say, that took probably 7 to 8 months, and I built it 4 times probably. Like for the first 3 times, it was a scrap. So yeah, I scrapped it up. Yeah, eventually it turned out to be, if you have to build something which is on a like feature wise a lot more complicated, and productivity wise you are the only person to do that, then it boils down to one factor. As like when I say only person to do that, is like when the person to like develop it. Yeah, it only boils down to one fact. You have to like put yourself in a extremely comfort zone, like out of your extreme comfort zones, where you are pushed to your maximum, and when you know you cannot compromise your office work with it, right? You have to manage your office, and then you have to focus on it. So it was like a hardcore effort that went there. That like even if I say, hey, I did not practice a lot, yeah, the practice comes from there. Is like, okay, if I had to solve this thing, and when I say there was 4 revisions of whatever I wanted to build, that's where I primarily got to get better at. Like, okay, if I can solve a problem, let's say in a X way, what could be the better way, which is essentially thinking about, hey, if you write an algorithm, or let's say O of n cube, how do you make it n square, or how do you make it n log, essentially in this way. So when you talk, for example, one of those things was I was trying to like do some kind of a searching based on like a message thread and all, right? Those things were requiring like a modified version of binary search and other search trees and other patterns. Now that thing forced me to read about, let's say, binary trees or search trees in general. That's how I got an exposure to. But I never needed to explore a problem. However, this thing was beneficial for me. There are 2 reasons. Firstly, Leetcode can potentially have also a negative effect. So let's say a beginner comes who does not have much of an idea of what to do next, and the person just starts open Leetcode, and let's open a Leetcode hard problem, and the person is like, okay, I cannot do this thing. Maybe this job is not for me, which is not the scenario. It's not that difficult. It's easy. You just need to make your way up to there. Once you get the essence of it, you would be able to solve pretty much anything, if that answers your question.
That's great. Thank you for this information. Like most of this, we thought like Leetcode is the only way to get a job in product.
Yeah, not necessarily. I would say I would say in this case is, however, whenever you want to like, it's not about cracking a company, or whenever you're not, it does not really matter where you come from. If you're really curious to know something, and if you're really invested in your skills, it does not really, it's all requires is, can you solve a problem in the most like a viable way possible?
Yeah,
that's it. If as long as that answer is yes, it does not really matter how you gain that problem solving. An added benefit of like having a lot of projects, or having not even a lot of projects, but having a very like a big project, when what you do undertake yourself, is whenever somebody asks you a question, you respond in a human way. So it's like you ask me a tech question, and if I have used it, I would be able to tell you the precise use case scenario at where I used it, instead of giving you a more theoretical answer, which also has a more higher value compared to a bookish definition, because it's application oriented, right?
Okay, got your point. Thank you.
Sure.
So Tuhin, like for CV, like CV is our Bible, we all know. Yeah. So in the CV, you mentioned mostly projects, college projects, industry projects. So can you tell us like what is the important factor of that? Like how it is important?
So yeah. So it's a very like tricky question to answer, I would say.
Yeah.
So firstly, it depends on not the number of projects, but the value of each project. Let me elaborate with an example. So there are multiple ways nowadays you can create a project, right? First, you can go to a YouTube, watch a tutorial, you can clone that, copy it precisely, like mimic that particular person, and you say, hey, it's a project that you did. That's a way.
Yeah.
Another way, you can go to a GitHub repo, fork that repo and say, hey, this is my repo,
Yeah.
which is not ideal, but yeah, you can still do that if you really wanted to. Okay. Then there is the third way, where you really invest yourself to
Yes.
build a couple of small utility stuff.
Yes.
There can be multiple utility stuff, but this is something that is genuinely built and you learned out of it. And the fourth way is, you don't really care about small utility stuff. However, you aim exceptionally high, and which is pretty much for the other world, like the rest of the people in the world, they might say, hey, it's an unachievable goal, and you are like, hey, I am still going to build that particular XYZ startup, let's say hypothetically, and you start doing that. If you really do the fourth one, the thing is, even if you would have only one project, that one project would be worth of a million projects. In a sense, let's say if you could build, hypothetically, let's say you build a clone of Zoom, hypothetically in this case, or clone of YouTube, or maybe a video watching platform. And when I say video watching platform, that includes like video encoding, video processing, how do you even deliver that, and all those scalable things. And you really do it in not the like not a like a hobby project way, but try to do it in the most production grade that you can do. Then your one project can serve as like $1 million thing, because that project has a lot of interconnected bits that will force the person who is reviewing your CV to have a great impact. One of the interesting thing though is, like, when I was primarily building all this my side project, right now I'm also like trying to build like a ed tech platform, not necessarily for a second source of income or something, but yeah, it's just like I love to build stuff. Now, whenever I do some kind of these things, I usually keep posting stuff on LinkedIn and all, and how the journey goes, so on and so forth. It turns out to be that since I'm doing something, it's not about I'm telling I will do this, I know how to do this. It's about I'm demonstrating, hey dude, hey, come and see, this is what I built. Have a look into this thing. Give it a try. Do you like it? Yeah, that's what I built. It's way more efficient, way more impactful. And that's also, you get a lot of contacts, and that's how primarily this thing would go. So having a lot of projects is not a must.
Yeah.
Having good project is a must.
Okay.
Because like demonstrating is better than telling.
Okay. For like conclusion is like quantity doesn't matter, qualities matter.
Right. Quality indeed matters. Quant over quantity. I would definitely agree. Yeah. And as long as it's demonstrated, it's very great. So sometimes we also have this tendency of like doing something, but then we feel like, hey, we will just keep it to a local. Don't keep it to your local. When I say local, it means local or something. Deploy it somewhere. Let it be there for people to use. Let it be there for people to watch, so that so that people could just go and see that. Maybe if you have built a really exceptionally nice website, or maybe a nice application which functions great and is performant enough too, and maybe visually pleasing, that's an added bonus. Yeah, if somebody downloads that app, the person uses it, and that person instantly know what you are capable of, and whether you are not a good fit or not for the particular role that you are being hired for. So they really do not need to go through your resume screening process, because yeah, you can get the job done. That's it.
Okay, got your point. Thank you. So Tuhin, can you tell us what are the base resources available for students? Like they can prepare like DSL, Go, system design, computer fundamentals, those subjects.
Right. So it's once again, it's a very tricky question to answer, because I can talk about a lot of resources. However, if you really think about it, something that works for me may or may not be working for you,
Yeah.
right? So it's mostly boils down to hearing people's opinion and following, creating your own learning path. What worked for me was, when I was like in college days, there's a channel, right? A coding train, if you're aware of. So yeah, I just went there, and like I spent hours and hours watching that particular person solving creative visualization problem, not necessarily how to solve like find a number in a sorted array, or maybe not this kind of problem, but in a problem solving in general, which gave me an intuition of like, okay, how people write code, how what would be the most cleanest way to write code. I prefer maintainability and clean coding, and those things where for those things, if you really want to be curious about how do you write scalable code or maintainable code, there is a website known as Refactoring Guru, as far as I could remember. And in order, if you want to just get started with coding or something, Hacker Earth has a very decent resource of, like, they already have a practice section where they have algorithms, and then they explain those algorithms in a very brief format, and then they have a curated set, like all those bare minimums that you might ever require. If you really want to go deep, Geeks for Gigs is the only place that I can ever talk about. And once again, these are all primarily free things. And at the end of the day, if you still want to learn more, YouTube is there. However, none of these resources would be helpful if you only watch them or consume them or read them. Until and unless you literally apply them,
Yes.
it's pretty much pointless. It's pointless to read 10 books if you never really understood a single book, if I
Exactly.
were to say like this. So like, consuming content is great, but only consuming content is bad.
Yeah.
So it's like consume. And also, if I were to ask personally, I would recommend key start with one of the dream ideas that you ever wanted to build. It can be even a simple project. Maybe you always wanted to build your next big startup. Maybe you wanted to open up a restaurant. Maybe you wanted to create a food delivering application. I would say start with it. Don't think about I do not have the right resources for it, because even in software industry, right, nobody knows how to solve a problem. It's just that this is a problem you figure out, and which implies all that you really need to know is how do you navigate through that a particular unknown path. That's all it boils down. You start with a very big idea. Eventually, that will give you a lot of questions. And the more questions you have, the more questions you Google, or maybe Bing, or whatever it is. You search for this question and you gain answers. One of the biggest resources of unheard resources that I primarily use is GitHub issues and Stack Overflow. I love Googling. I Google a lot. It's fine.
Got
Oh,
it.
you get better at it eventually.
Yeah. Thank you for this information. So, Tuhin, can you tell us, those are the students who have their upcoming interview in Google, how should they prepare?
Okay, so once again, this answer varies from role to role,
Yeah.
and depending on what role you are being interviewed for, you already know what are the minimum competencies that you must possess, right? And I assume already the fact that they already have all those skill set, otherwise their resume would not even get shortlisted, right? Now that it's a really great thing to hear that for the folks who have already cleared their, like, at least got their resume shortlisted and having to get getting a chance to get being interviewed. Because one of the things that I personally feel, at least for off campus, is the hardest thing to crack a company is to get shortlisted for an interview. Once you are shortlisted, then you are in the process, right? Then you can put this like, okay, I know this and I get it. I do not know this and I cannot pass through. But if you are not even shortlisted, there is no point of having that company.
Yes.
Cool. So it's firstly a heartily congratulations to those whose resume gets shortlisted, and yeah, all the best for the rest. However, for the preparation wise, I would say it's better at the last moment not to focus on something much more like new to you. However, as a rule of thumb, what I usually prefer to do is, like I said, while reading through a lot of content, or while reading through a lot of like technical issues, make a habit of writing things down, which always comes handy in the long term. Why? Once you are reading or writing or solving a problem, there would be some problem for which okay, I get this point, but I still struggle on this particular bit. Have a note of writing things down so that you know just before the interview which is the particular thing that you ever wanted to see. So there is a saying, right? The thing that you practice one time for that next 100 days is none of your concern, because that you will eventually manage. But the thing that you practice 100 times for the next 100 days is the only thing that you should be worried about, because just because you're practicing it 100 times is probably that is the most fragile thing that can happen. So similarly, having a rote of writing things down of what you are already aware and what you are not already aware, whatever you feel like, hey, I need a bit more help on this thing, just keep prioritizing those. And just before the interview, if the date is closing up, it's good to brush up your like a basic problem solving skills, basic interview like content of like how those algorithms works and all those things. It's good to have a decent understanding of the role that you are being interviewed for and the competencies required. It's a plus if you have a good conversational skills. And yeah, that's pretty much all that you need. Focus on your plus points, dude, because it's already you're already there. There is no point of, don't try to experiment with anything new until and unless you are super sure that will work. Let's keep to the safer side.
Got your point. I guess it will really help for students who have that interview in Google.
Yeah.
Once again, Tuhin, thanks to coming to my YouTube channel. It was a pleasure to talk with you. So guys, don't forget to like our channel. Don't forget to share our channel. Don't forget to subscribe our channel. Thank you, Tuhin.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it was really great time talking to you. And yeah, I'm pretty sure if it helps someone out there to like have a better interview experience, yeah, I would be the most happiest person in that case. And all the best for those who get shortlisted for their interviews and getting qualified for this thing. And all the best for those who are just on the process of being shortlisted. Yeah, just keep your great stuff upcoming and going and free flowing and keep learning things. Also, as a matter of fact, yeah, Shuru might also drop my LinkedIn profile link in that description or something, maybe there. And yeah, feel free to connect on me if you want to.
Yeah.
I would love to have a talk with you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was really great talking to you.
Yeah. Thanks once again. Thank you.
Thank you.